Hello, Welsh Forest Focus. It was defeat for Nottingham Forest in the most painful of circumstances at the weekend as they lost 1-0 to Liverpool at the City Ground in the 99th minute. There was the most basic of refereeing errors at a crucial time in the game, but can the Reds pin the result on that moment? Joining me to discuss all that and what happens next is, first of all, Reds fan Mikey Clarke. Mikey, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Matt. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. After a few minutes, people in the comments do us a favour. If anyone's volume's a bit wonky, let us know. I've got some kind of weird tinnitus-y thing going on, which is probably from doing this podcast, actually. So I probably can't even hear properly. So do let me know if there's any issues with the volume. Second guest today is former Reds midfielder Lewis McGugan. Lewis, good you join us ever? Are you okay?
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good to have you with us. And stepping off the bench at the last minute, as opposed to the advertised guest list today, and Temps can't do it. So Pete Blackburn has kindly stepped in to join us. Pete, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Thanks. If you think I talk a load of nonsense normally, I guess you'll see what it's like when I haven't even prepared. So apologies in advance.
You've been furiously looking through the notes to form some opinions on them. Well, I think everyone's got an opinion on the refereeing thing. And normally I say, let's have a general view. But a lot of the conversation is probably predicated on the refereeing situation. If anyone's been living under a rock, it all pertains around Paul Tierney dropping the ball back to Liverpool in the 96th minute after a head injury when Forest were in possession. I think we'll have different sliding scales of opinions on how it impacted the game and how we view what happened next. So we'll just go around the room and take what people think, and I'll weigh in with a view as well. I've no idea what Lewis thinks. I've got an idea from the other two lads, so we'll kick off with Lewis because I just want to hear what he thinks about it from a player's point of view as well.
Yeah, listen, I think it's been kind of quite publicised over since the game finished that it was a really, really big error in terms of the referee, and it's just you kind of hope and you think at the top level, them things don't happen, and I think that there's so many things kind of from that decision. There's the kind of spell after that, the timing until the goal. So there's a load of kind of little things that can all kind of accumulate into one. But I think that if we get the ball back, which was rightly so in that kind of after that phase of play, I think it's a totally different kind of action. Do they get to the other end? Do they have that momentum? It's, you know, we'll never know. But I think first and foremost, the referee mistake then caused the kind of follow on for what happened at that point.
We'll come on to the goal then and break that down. Just in general, Mikey, what's your view on it?
View on that? Yeah, very similar. It's so frustrating because the team battled so hard and stayed in the game for almost 100 minutes and should have deservedly got something out of the game. So I'm sure we're going to break it down. But I think Lewis is right. What really gets me is a lot of people watching this and listening to this would have been at the game. So they'll know firsthand the feeling that was in that ground once he made that decision. Some people might have been listening to it and got a sort of a gut feel from the radio, and some won't have gone. For those that didn't go, I can only say that when he made that decision, the whole atmosphere in the ground completely flipped and went from singing, cheering, roaring the guys on for those last few minutes to try and get us over the line to get a point, to one of the most volatile, vicious 5 minutes I think I've ever experienced in football. And I'm not overstating this. I sit in the quiet, reserved bit of the City Ground now, and literally every single person was on their feet, screaming, couldn't believe it, because we almost knew that first off they'd given 8 minutes injury time, and you know they were going to play longer than that anyway. And secondly, if we would have got the ball in the final third, we probably would have got a corner or a throw in. That would have taken another minute. And all those, and Liverpool were in their defensive shape. So they had like one player in our half. By giving them the ball back, we had to drop off 30, 35 yards. They then pushed forward and had a sustained 2 minute spell where eventually they broke us down. If the right decision's made at that point, I don't think they even probably get in our half. We certainly don't let a goal in. So the atmosphere in the ground from that point was almost one of complete trepidation, because we almost knew, hold on, that is a fundamental error. There was 26,000 Forest fans screaming, that is not the rule, referee. That is not the rule. And when it culminates in the goal for Liverpool, again, the reaction was just one of complete and utter disgust and frustration, because although it hadn't led directly to the goal, the sequence of events, that was a catalyst for it. So I left the ground on Saturday feeling disgusted, bewildered, angry, just everything, because the guys were brilliant. They tried so hard, and we were within a whisker of getting what would have been an invaluable point, let down again by a dreadful decision. Now, we'll talk about clearing lines, and honestly, I wish we just would have whacked it into the stand, but we didn't. But I've got to emphasise just one last time, the whole atmosphere flipped in that injury time. Please listen to it again if you've got the, or watch it. It literally went from total support to utter frustration, and that must have had some sort of impact on the players. It must have done. So I'm just, there's nothing you can do about it, and I'm not going to sit here and just blame referees, but yet again, we've been on the end of an awful decision, and it's cost us.
Before I come to Pete, should the players have kicked off Lewis at the time when the balls dropped? Because no one really reacted to it, or equally, you told you play to the whistle and you deal with it. Is it half of one and 6-1, half a dozen of the other?
Yeah, well, I think if you look back at it, I think Morgan was kind of the first one quite close to the referee. You can see him kind of having a conversation with the referee and claiming about the decision. But I think at that time, especially the time in the game, as Mike said, as the kind of crowds changing, it is a tense time. I'd say the 8 minutes, as soon as you get a big number as a player, as soon as kind of if you're hanging on to a lead or you're trying to hold out for a point, we know that Liverpool are going to come strong. You know that they're going to then bring on Núñez, and you could feel it coming. You could feel it coming. The pressure is rising. But as a player at that point, sometimes in that kind of heat of the moment, all you're trying to do is be solid. Okay, decisions kind of gone wrong. You might not agree with, but at that point in time, you're just trying to get back in position. You're trying to make sure that you're doing the right thing. You're trying to shout to your teammates. So it's quite a hectic period. Half the time you can't even hear each other because it's that kind of tense point of time. So after the game, after the time, like I said, the players closer to the referee, you can see clearly trying to kind of have a conversation about the decision. But I think the ones further away, they're more concentrated on getting into shape, understanding that the decision's gone against us. We now need to get back into shape, make sure everyone's doing their job. And that's, from a player's point of view, more where the thought process will come to it at that point in time.
What's your take on it, Pete? Then I'll give mine.
Such a hard question to answer. In the ground, it was something that made me angry in the moment, as often lots of decisions do. Obviously, it felt wrong, but I'm not going to claim that I'm across the intricacies of these laws, because it seems since that the analysis has got quite deep, and there's all sorts of stuff going on about exactly where the ball's in play and all that sort of stuff. And I had no idea exactly how that is supposed to play out, but it felt wrong, and it hurt, and it's really brutal. And this is one of those examples of football just being really, really horrible. I guess it's how the game works, is that there are such small defining moments that make such a difference, because it's such a low scoring game with so sort of few points or goals, or however you want to look at it, on offer compared to lots of the sports out there. And you get these tiny moments that are just absolutely brutal. But I've got to say, overall, I'm really inclined to talk about the refereeing side of things as little as possible. I really don't want the narrative around us to become us being sort of victims of this stuff all the time. I think we played so well for so much of that game. The players delivered so much of the stuff that I asked for on that match preview on Friday, and it's absolutely gutting that we've not come out of the game with something. But ultimately, there was a fairly significant period of time between the refereeing mess and our own mess at the back, right? And I don't know what period of time it needs to be for us to start talking about whether it's our fault or not. That's a sort of sliding scale, I guess. But we just have to take control of what we can control. We can't do anything about the refereeing situation. It does feel like we're getting really hard done to on lots of occasions at the moment. And I don't know whether that's just because we're a bit down and there's a lot going on around the club, on and off the pitch. But all I think we can focus on is what we do. We had opportunities to right that wrong, or right that wrong is probably the wrong phrasing, but we had opportunities to make sure it didn't become a problem for us. We didn't do that. It was really out of kilter with the rest of the game because I thought we managed it so well. I'm sure we'll go on to talk about a lot of that stuff. We answered so many of those questions that we've been worried about in recent weeks when it comes to defending set pieces and controlling those situations. So ultimately, it's just massively, massively gutting. But my personal instinct is I'm not desperate to talk about the refereeing side of it because it's out of our control anyway. I don't think we're going to help ourselves by making this a massive narrative swirling around Forest. And I just think we have to control what we can control and try and move on and take what we can from this game, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's a cumulative effect of a lot of things. Our position in the league table, a points deduction hanging over us, a series of cascading refereeing errors that have gone against us in varying degrees. And this was the most incompetent in terms of just not knowing basic rules. But I think there's been more that's impacted us directly. I think even all the way back to the Rashford penalty at Old Trafford, and then the Bolly one, a one-knee penalty, Nico Williams penalty. I think there's been loads of duff decisions that have gone against us. And I actually don't think this had the most direct impact on the game because first and foremost, if Taiwo or Callum Hudson-Odoi smash the ball into the stand, then probably this is at worst like in any other business. Oh, isn't Paul Tierney a crap ref? Well, yeah, Paul Tierney is a crap ref. And Premier League refs are not good enough. And if there aren't better refs below that in the Championship to come through, then there's big problems. But I think first and foremost, Forest should have dealt with it. But Mikey's got a good point, and Lewis has as well. It changed the direction of the game. I think both things can be true. The ref screwed us over, but we didn't help ourselves. And I think we can, like Pete says, take a grip of what we can control and use the anger in a positive way. And I'll ask Lewis about that later. But I think there's a lot going on. And I understand the frustration, especially of people in the ground, because we'd worked so hard. And if you're a player, I'm sure Lewis can attest this more than me. If you put that shift in and then you come out of the game with nothing, then you're going to be gutted. But I hope the focus isn't twisted that it's all the ref's fault and we turn this into a narrative of, oh, everything has gone against us with every decision in every game, because it hasn't. And we can look after ourselves just as much, but everything can be true and we need better from referees. And I hope we get that going forwards. And we'll come on to grand conspiracy theories a little bit, perhaps, but I just don't believe in that at all. I just think, like Fletch said the other day, it's a question of competence versus whatever he said, like inconsistencies. And too many refs are incompetent, and this ref is incompetent. And that's one thing, but we do have to look after ourselves first as well. Right, that was my take on it. Just thank a few people for their support. What have we got? Elliot Holbert, that's your mate, Pete, for becoming a member. Appreciate that. Graham Petrie, Paul Littlejohn, and Manuel Lawrence. Thank you very much for Crypto Rider. He's on Forest Fan TV, dipping in with a £5 donation. That's very kind. Yeah, Taiwo's form will come on to. I'll put this on the screen, actually. Disappointing Taiwo didn't clear it. His form has dropped slightly. I hope he comes good and gets his match sharpness up. We'll probably come on to that right towards the end. Right, where to next? Oh, yeah, the goal. Right, Lewis, what should happen with the goal? Is it as simple as smash the ball away and you get a point, or can you understand why they're trying to run it out and spring a counter-attack?
No, and I think that's the most important thing. I think Pete's right in the terms of exactly everything he was saying. I think that from a management and a player's point of view, after everything's kind of calmed down and they debrief it kind of this week, that they're in full control. Like I said, they're in that point where that's what they'll be gutted about. Losing control, we could have played at that point in time, at that time in the game. You've just got to kind of clear your lines. You're under the cosh. Probably they clear the lines. It goes up the other end of the pitch. Referee blows his whistle. That's it done. And really, you've got a fantastic point. Everyone kind of leaves the stadium in such a positive mood in terms of the performance, in terms of how we've kind of played two teams in terms of the cup game in the week. It wasn't the best of games in the week, but again, it's a top team that we've probably had the better chances and probably should have won. Same again on Saturday. We've had the better chances. You look at Alanga's big opportunity, and I think he has to score that. And I think you score that at that time, it's a completely different game. So I think if from a kind of in-house perception of the way they'll look at it this morning and this week is that, yes, we can, the kind of noise, what's happened. Yes, okay, that decision maybe has changed the flow of the game, but we were still in full control and we still had the ball in our defensive area where we can get rid of it. And I think that is kind of a mistake that the players collectively, because that's a game that you should see out. And that's probably the most upsetting point when you look at it from everything what's happened. I think it was a really good performance and a really good performance that they can build on. And I think they can still do that. It's hard. Sometimes you don't get what you deserve. And on Saturday, we didn't get what we deserved. But that's football. That happens. But they've just got to take the positives, what was it throughout the game, the chances that created. And on another day, take them. And hopefully everyone's walking out the stadium with 3 points and a completely different mindset.
I guess it's more painful, Pete, as well, that we defended set pieces so badly this season in general. But on this game, I thought we defended them so well. When the team was announced and Felipe or Bolly weren't in it, I thought, oh, well, who's going to deal with Virgil van Dijk? And Ryan Yates took that responsibility and did it ever so well. And I thought he had a really great game. Does that make it even more frustrating that we've really worked so hard and seen out so many set pieces and we just can't do that last one?
It really does. I mean, I must say, I left the game and basically immediately wrote the whole thing out of my mind because I couldn't cope with what had happened, and I sort of basically moved on straight away. And I haven't thought about any of this until you texted me about 25 minutes ago and said you got to come back on here and go through all your post-traumatic stress. So I hadn't even looked at the goals or anything. And yet the reason for that is because it is absolutely brutal. It's just so horrible coming out, having seen those lads give so much for it. I feel like a bit of a fraud commenting on some of the intricacies of the game sometimes, because obviously I haven't got a clue. I'm a very poor amateur footballer at best. On that Hudson-Odoi and Taiwo clearing it thing, Lewis is obviously bang on. I guess if I'm trying to be kind, I think Hudson-Odoi on lots of occasions this season has shown that he's actually really good in those tight situations in our own half where he can sort of wriggle out and get us up the pitch. But I guess the point is, it's just not the time to be doing it, and it's probably just not the area to be doing it. So I sort of want to be fair to all the lads because I think they put in such a big effort. And I did leave the game proud of them, and I think it was that sort of pride that made me think I'm just going to forget this result and how it played out, and hopefully they can do the same thing and take all the good stuff into the next one. Because, like you say, they answered so many of those questions. We're terrified watching teams take set pieces against us, and this is a team who are good at set pieces with a massive threat in Van Dijk, like you said. Yates dealt with him brilliantly, and we didn't. It just didn't seem like a worry to me. There was very rare moments in the game where I felt genuinely concerned about what was happening. I think there was one moment where there was a pullback across the box that Diaz was freer than I would have liked for, and I thought he was going to tuck it away and maybe that would be it. But I think Dominguez nicked in and took the ball away from him. There's a couple of those moments, but generally speaking, I thought we managed it so well. And players like Bamadeli coming in, having been nowhere for the team in the last few weeks, despite having done well. It doesn't really fill you with confidence, I guess, necessarily. But he was brilliant. The fullbacks again were brilliant. Nico goes from strength to strength. I could say so many positive things about the game and the team. I want to be effusive about it because ultimately we've got not long left of this season, and we've got to take all the good stuff and try and build confidence and momentum. And I think fans have a role in that as well as the players and the management and the coaching staff do. So I do feel genuinely pretty positive about all of it. And like you say, they did answer a lot of those questions. Perhaps it going wrong in the end undermines all that. But for me, I'm going to choose for that not to be the sort of analysis that I have and be positive about it, because I think they showed an awful lot of positive stuff. And and did answer loads of those questions, and hopefully we can just keep building on that.
Yeah, we will refer back to quite a lot of those individuals, because I'm upbeat coming, obviously not upbeat out of on Saturday night, but feeling more upbeat about the prospects in the final 10 or 11 games. Certainly we'll circle back to quite a few of those positives. Just on the reaction at the end, Mikey, I don't know why we put Mark Clattenburg up for media. Personally, I don't think it makes. I think it looks a bit silly. I don't mind the appointment in terms of marginal gains. If you can say to players, this is how refs like to be spoken to. This ref gives certain fouls in certain situations. But what does Mark Clattenburg say that we can't all see? So that was one thing. What do you make of? We won't dwell on this too long. What do you make of the owner coming pitch side? Because I think it's a precedent that you can't really repeat personally. But who's going to tell him, no, you can't go there? It's his football club. But is it something that can't really happen again, even if we appreciate the frustrations?
I'm an emotional creature, right? So
we know that.
In the cold light of day, it doesn't look great. However, casting my mind back to Saturday, I've got my wife sat next to me, who is very calm. She was as angry as I've ever seen her. Got a guy called Boynesy in front of me, who's the nicest guy in the world. I've never seen him so angry at all. So it was that feeling that I mentioned earlier that was in the ground, and it obviously transcended into the owner. So it's his football club. I guess he can do what he wants. I mean, cold light of day, it doesn't look great, and I'm with you. I'm not sure why Mark Clattenburg is doing that, but I guess if he's not going to do it on this occasion, when is he going to do it? Because that was a fundamental refereeing error, but that's kind of a whole different thing. But I think it's something that I'd want to avoid, because it could just become a bit of a laughing stock. Every time we lose or something goes against us, we'll put an ex-referee up for a press conference. The owner comes on the pitch. It doesn't look good, but I can't lie. I can't sit here and lie and say that there wasn't an overall feeling in the ground that we'd been absolutely screwed out of it for whatever reason. Somebody said behind me, how long is he given for injury time? And then the guy replied to him, it's until Liverpool score. And that was the general feeling around me. So I'm not surprised they scored after 9 minutes. So all this feeling of 28,000 people being absolutely fed up went into the owner, and the owner's gone on the pitch. I didn't see him do anything fundamentally wrong, but I guess his presence there probably doesn't set a great standard, as you were saying, Matt. But I can't lie. He was just as frustrated as us all. And just going back to Clattenburg as well, really interesting appointment. I don't know. I'm in two minds about it, because when he first got appointed into this role, I didn't understand it. I don't want to be going down the narrative that Pete was saying. I don't want us to become this club that just moans about refereeing decisions. Although before this podcast, off the top of my head, I wrote down 8 things that have gone against us in the last 2 months. That's just fact. But I don't want us to become that. However, if you're going to employ him and pay him, I imagine, a significant amount of money, and something like that happens, surely he sticks his hand up and says, I'm the expert here. Don't you talk, Nuno, because Nuno didn't say anything about refs, did he? He just refused to talk about them. I suspect it was a collective thing where he said, this is where I step in. This is what you pay me for. I'll go and talk to the media. I'll go and address them. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But like I said, if he's not going to do it on Saturday, when is he going to do it? I don't know what you guys think about it. The whole thing was just horrible, those last 5-10 minutes. I'm not surprised it snowballed into owners coming on the pitch and referee analysts talking to the media. It was just horrible. I feel so much for the lads, because we tried so hard, and yet again we've let in a header from a cross, when they really didn't deserve it at all.
Well, it doesn't happen at other clubs, I'll say that. Right, a good comment from Russell Eldridge here. It'd be hilarious if they find Clattenburg for criticising the referee. Have to see what happens. Although I don't think Clattenburg said anything out of order, because he didn't say anything we couldn't really see anyway. Right, just a moment to thank our sponsors as ever. The Trent Navigation. We'll take a quick pause there with a video. Actually, we'll just take the 30-second video from Matt Ford, because my voice is really dodgy today. Thank you very much. See you in 30 seconds.
And not just great beers, but immaculate inside. Cobs on the bar. What more do you want? I would say it was well priced as well. And then, obviously, as you know, the big shed outside and what they've done on match days is phenomenal. That's become, when I first started, as a kid, I never really heard of the Trent Nav as like a big place to go. And then the last few years, it's really grown in stature as a pre-match place to go. I love it. And I love the fact that it's on the way to the ground. And I just love everything they've done with it. It's great.
Let's move on to talking about how the players pick themselves up from it, what happened. I want to get Lewis's take on it. I mean, what will this week be like, Lewis, before we look forwards about how we kind of utilise the anger? What will this week be like in the training ground?
New week, fresh start. I think, like I said, there's a lot of positives to take from it. It's happened now. That happens in football. Sometimes you don't get the results that you deserve. Sometimes things go against you. We can't, especially at this point in the season, we can't dwell, we can't moan. It's happened, it's done. What we have to do now is take the positives from the last week, in terms of we've gone against these bigger teams on both occasions. I mean, we've created chances, we've looked really positive, we defended well as a team, we defended well as a back four. I think the goalkeeper's kind of done very well. I think he's very commanding. I think his presence, or just his presence alone, I think it's kind of gave maybe the defence a little bit more confidence. And I think this week is, again, get down to work. And what we have to do now is keep building on these performances, go into these games and try and get points to stay in the Premier League. I think that's the most important thing. All the outside noise, yes, you can sit there and discuss it day after day, but it's not going to change anything. We need to now get points to stay in this league. And I think when we look from a whole, the last two performances, especially Saturday, is very, very promising, and there's a lot of good things to take from that. And Nuno and his coaching staff, like I say, they'll look back on the videos, they'll take that, and I think it's just to create positivity, really. And I think even from a fan base, I think a lot of the fan base is that positive feeling. You know what I mean? We've played Liverpool, and on another day we should have won, and we've had chances, and we have to take them. And I think that's maybe probably over the last week, it's a big thing now. We need to start taking our chances because we're creating them, and I think that sometimes when you're not creating, that's when you do worry. But we are creating good chances, but we need to start putting them away now to take the pressure off situations like that. When you've got kind of 5-10 minutes to go, you're under the cosh, your back's against the wall. Them goals at certain times can kind of just give you that bit of a comfort blanket and allow you to see games out a bit easier.
Do you think Elanga was being a bit too precise with that? The left-footed one, second half, is probably the big one, because the first half one, I think he might have been offside. But is he trying to be a bit too precise there and trying to hit it in off the post, basically?
The second one, in terms of the second one, I actually think that's a good effort, because he's coming across the box, and he's got a really good contact on it. And I actually think that's a good effort. That's a very hard skill to do, as it's coming across your pace. And I think that he's controlled the shot. And I think that is, you know what I mean, if that happens, if I see that, I think, that's unlucky. On another day, that finish in the bottom corner, that's a great finish. I think the first half one, I think everyone in the stadium probably thought it was offside, but you still need to, especially now with the rules, you play until told otherwise. But I think he's got to score that. I think he's got to score that. He's one-on-one. He's got a lot of time to think about it. And I just think that he's probably too close to the keeper. He's not really tried to do anything. Has he tried to lift it? And I think they're the ones where you look and think they're the ones that we need to take care of. I think the ones in the second half are very tough chances. But I think the first half one, that's where you expect to score.
I will bring the other lads in a minute. I've got some questions specifically for Lewis, so I hope they'll be patient. What goes through your mind when you're one-on-one with the keeper?
Well, you've just got to kind of concentrate. You've got to think. You've got to keep on looking. Obviously, you've got to watch what the keeper's doing. You've got to look where the keeper's coming, his angles, how he's coming out. And I think you've just got to be confident. You've got to be confident in your finish. And I think if you look at it, probably that's where I think Elanga's done so well since he's come to the club. But I think maybe that's his area that he needs to just improve on. And that's fine, because he's only getting better. But I think that confidence in front of goal, I think that's the difference now. Instead of probably thinking, I'm not sure, and having them questions, it's that ruthlessness. And I think if we can create that ruthlessness in that attacking end from now to the end of the season, I think we'll be fine.
Last one I was going to ask you as well, Lewis, around picking ourselves up from here. I'm sure when Billy was manager, he probably would have made this us v the world. Everyone, the Premier League hate us, the refs hate us. Is there? Yeah, he would, yeah. Is there anything in that mentality for you that Nuno should use this in a positive way? Not like a saying like, oh, everyone's out to get us in that sense, but can this be harnessed in a good way by the players, do you think?
Listen, I think you can do that if you want to. I think what you have to be careful of, all this kind of back and forth, all this is against us, it can become emotionally and physically draining. Or the constant story, the constant back and forth. And sometimes that's where you have to be careful. You don't want players constantly thinking, going into games, the referee's going to be us against the referee, us against the referee. The amount of people that we've all watched football, play football at any level, we understand that mistakes are always going to happen. Sometimes they're going to go for you. Sometimes they're going to go against you. When they go against you, you think that you try and critique every single detail and think that the world's ending. It sometimes happens, and what you hopefully, a big saying is, you hopefully, like from now to the end of the season, it will swing the other way, and we'll get a bit of luck, and something will go our way what we probably maybe did deserve, and that might get us a point, it might get us free, and that's, you've got to kind of turn the positive and have that positive environment. Don't really dwell on it now, because all it's going to do is probably going to emotionally drain the kind of everyone talking about it all the time. It's happened, it's done. Like I said, new week. Positive mind frame, take the positives from it and push on.
Let's talk about some of the individuals from the game then, because there were so many good individual performances, which makes it more painful that we lost as well. But I just want to pick out a few of them and see, where we can take it from here. Matt Sells, Mikey. I mean, I don't know if you calmed down from the goal against Man United. I know you still blame Matt Turner for that, which I don't, but that's fine. Matt Sells feels like a good upgrade now. I mean, that save in stoppage time, we'd be probably leading off the podcast saying, that save's earned us a point normally. That was outstanding, wasn't it?
Yeah, unbelievable. He's definitely an upgrade. And I think Lewis hit the nail on the head. He just oozes calmness with his feet, with his command of the area. And I still don't know how we saved that. I said to the people around me, how on earth has he kept that out? Because that should have got us a point. He was great, and he's going to be key, crucial for us for the run-in, no doubt. So, really pleased, and I think the calmness, like I said, that he uses, obviously transcended into the back four as well, because that was a really good performance from them. And you'd like to think, 10, 11 games left? You'd like to think if that continues, there's plenty of points in there for us to get us over the line. But no, I was really pleased. I was really pleased with them all. I'm sure you're going to talk about Nico. I thought he was the best player on the pitch for both sides, if I'm honest. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. So that's what makes it even more gutting that we didn't get anything from the game. But like the guys are saying, if we have this level of performance against some of the teams, so-called easier teams, then there's definitely points in there for us.
If you're enjoying the video, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, subscribe and give us a good review on iTunes, Spotify. It all helps, and we very much appreciate any backing that we get. I'm going to let Pete talk about Nico, because I think he's his biggest fan, and he was my man of the match. I thought he was exceptional, especially against Diaz, because they seemed like they put him up against Nico. So they obviously thought they could get something out of him, because he normally plays on the other side, I think I'm right in saying. But the progression of Nico, Pete, since he's come back into the team, and generally he's just been excellent, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've absolutely loved it. Just before I talk about Nico, I just want to add on Sells. I really don't. I don't think we can sort of overplay the significance he could have for us. He as the chaps have said, he is an upgrade in general. I think he's an upgrade in every facet of the goalkeeping department, every skill that we need. I think he also is potentially a weapon. His distribution looked brilliant against Liverpool. I think some of those longer balls looked threatening. They were just getting in behind to the extent that they actually start to become a problem for the opposition, which is something we've just not remotely had for the rest of the season. And on top of it all, his mentality and his calmness, and the fact that hopefully he's not making crazy mistakes, should make such a difference to the confidence of the team. And perhaps, I think Lewis mentioned, perhaps you're already seeing that in that defensive performance. For me, it's an absolute game changer having him there. I didn't want to rush to sort of quick judgment on him, because obviously we're all sort of desperate that he's going to be an upgrade for us, because I think we need that so much. But it really does look like he will be. So that's a huge positive for us. On Nico, I mean, I think it might be the first time I've ever got anything right calling for him to be in the team and for us to back him. But I'm happy to take a bit of credit on that. Yeah, I think he's been fantastic, and I'm sort of predisposed to wanting us to support younger footballers who we've invested in and that we can coach and develop and bring on. And that's part of the reason why I want players like him in the team, because I think that's the model that Forest have got to operate with. We have to, granted we spent good money on him, but he's a player with a high ceiling, I think, who, with a run in the team and with good coaching and with a good structure around him and a team that starts to do better, he's a player who can really develop. I love the tenacity and the energy that he brings to every football match that he plays in. I know we often hear people say, it's a basic requirement of footballers that they work hard, etc. Obviously true, but it's also obviously true that some do work harder than others and some have different levels of energy and all that sort of stuff. And I think his impact is massive. He's just an absolute terrier for us. When you have him and Yates in there, you do get an extra sort of intangible, I think, with that sheer effort that they're putting in and the way that he's just snapping at the heels all the time. I think he's massively cut out the errors. I'm sure he'll still make them, and obviously he will get beaten and such like. But he's playing against very good quality Premier League wingers week in, week out at the moment, and he's always looking a match for them. He seems like he's coming out on top in big duels. And after every game recently, we've been singing his praises. I think it's been an absolute pleasure to see it. I think if he stays in the team and carries on having a run like this, then we certainly don't need to worry about right back next season. And he also obviously brings great versatility as well, because he can play left back pretty comfortably. He can play out wide, and he does a job for you there if you need that. So I think it's great, and it's really not a very long amount of time that has passed since Nico was a player that not many people wanted to see in the team, and that I think a lot of people would have been, pretty nonplussed about leaving the club. So I think it's a great win for everyone, really, his run of form. And I guess Nuno probably needs to take a fair bit of credit for that, or the coaching staff, because they're clearly doing good work with him, and kudos to Nico himself as well.
Was there a point in your career, Lewis, where, I don't know, where you felt it clicked, or where you felt like you belonged after a certain amount of games, or is that just a gradual thing in your personal experience?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, every single player has different moments, and I think I stated back when the possibility of a managerial change, as I did that, they'll guarantee there'll be some players that have been kind of out the team, out the squad at times, and they'll come in, new manager, and they'll probably be a vital part from that in the season. And counteract that, there might be players that have played majority of the games and completely out. That just happens with managerial changing in football. And I think sometimes some players get a lift and get a new lease of life with a managerial change. And if you look at it, he went through a spell where he was out of the team for a long period of time, and you have to be patient, you have to wait, you have to keep on doing the right things, and sometimes you get that chance, and he's got that chance, and he's took it with both hands. And I think he's got stronger and stronger, and the more confidence he's got, and I think that he can keep performing now, have a really good finish now to the end of the season. I think there we've got a really good, solid, modern day right back, and I think that's when the club are putting that money into them players. That's what they want to try and see. And I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think there can be little things in a season that can change and have them massive effects, and a managerial change at the right time. And some players are going to benefit from that. And I think Nico's one of them.
The other player I was going to ask you about is Lewis, is Omobamidele. It's the centre-half situation is really interesting, because Felipe, I thought he played really well against United. I was shocked he played 90 minutes. He was bad against Villa, but he was really good against West Ham. And then Omobamidele, who's been really knocked well down the pecking order without doing anything particularly wrong for me. He comes in and plays so well. And I think that's a big testament to him as a young man. Do you want to see a consistent run with Omobamidele or Felipe, or can we keep doing this horses for courses thing that we seem to be doing?
Well, I think what we have to look at is day to day. There might be stuff that's happening that Nuno's and his team are aware of, that maybe there might be a reason of not just performance related that they may be swapping. We like I say, we don't know that, but I think that he hasn't let anyone down when he came into the team. I think you recall back to the Blackpool game away. I think that was his first start in the cup, and I think he really had a commanding performance. He scored. And I think, like I said, I think he's been really good. I think the partnership with him and Murillo looks really impressive. And sometimes, And I think that's probably been a big thing with Murillo coming in. Sometimes with younger players, they play without the fear. They play without kind of that kind of cloud over them sometimes. And when you look at them two, especially Saturday, it's like they're really enjoying being out there. And I think from a fan's point of view, when you look and you go and watch football, I think that any fan wants to look at their team and their players and think to themselves, they're really enjoying being out there. They're really enjoying the battle. And listen, they'll make mistakes. 100% they'll make mistakes because they're young and they're learning. But I think that in terms of when the club have paid money for certain players, I think now we're looking and hopefully them players are starting to have a strong input in the starting 11. And I think that's a good sign moving forward for the longer term, because a lot of them players we're talking about, they was brought into the club for a longer term project. So like I said, I think it's a really positive moment. I think what we've got to do, we can't kind of probably be too critical, and they're all going to have dips at times, and they are going to make mistakes. But I think from the bigger picture, I think it's really positive signs.
And we touched on Ryan Yates. We talked about it so much on this podcast, so I wouldn't say much. I mean, I thought he was really good. The thing I think is, if he's anything less than a 7 out of 10, he gets treated like he's played a 3 out of 10, and that's something that I hope will change. But in general, in this game, I thought he was excellent. We just see who plays in midfield now with Sangare back in the mix, and forgetting who our other midfield options are. Obviously Dominguez. And we probably got someone else who I can't remember. Danilo, yeah. Who was fine when he came on as well. But this game I felt suited Yates. He gave that Bobby Clarke a bit of a roughing up, really. In the Liverpool midfield. Mikey, I was going to ask you, what's your take on the forward situation around Origi, who was pretty bright, I thought, but no Taiwo was it was a surprise. But then him playing 90 in the week, I found really weird. Do you think Taiwo comes back in soon, or could he have a little stint on the bench and be an impact sub now for a while?
No, he has to play. So when Taiwo had the ball and we were attacking, he looked fine. When he was tracking back and running after, he looked way off it, if I'm honest. So I'm not surprised after the full 90 in midweek against Man U. He's just coming back from an injury. And I'm also not surprised playing a team that could potentially win the league, that we look to see where we are after 60 minutes. And if we're still in the game, we bring him on, knowing what we've got coming. So wasn't necessarily overly surprised with the team lineup, but I do think that we need him. Oh my word, we need him for these last 10 games. If you cast your mind back to last season, he was arguably the difference maker, because we had that striker that was putting in goals, against Southampton, against Arsenal, against Chelsea away. The teams around us who went down didn't necessarily have that, and we need it now. So my one ask, I think, from the Forest coaching staff is just try your best to try and get him fit and try and get him in the team. I'd rather him play 60, 70 minutes and then you can flip it around and maybe take him off. But I think there are 11 games left, I think 6 or 7 of them are winnable, if I'm honest. Whether we'll win them or not is a different matter. But we won't win them without him in the team, is what I'm saying. So Alanga playing up front against those teams that push up, that will have 60, 70% of the ball, and you're trying to hit him on the break, makes sense. Made sense against Liverpool. Made sense against Villa, I suppose. Might even make sense against Tottenham when we go down there in a couple of weeks. But I think those other games, we need to see a fully fit Taiwo, because I think he'll get us over the line.
Great to have 500 people with us, by the way. Thanks for your company this morning. What's your take on Taiwo, Lewis? People in the comments are saying he's not playing very well at all. And to an extent, I agree that he's not playing as well as he can. But one of his first contributions on Saturday was to, I think, hold the ball up, lay it back to Toffolo, and he puts a cross in for Elanga. So he is making an impact. Is he way off where he should be or not?
Yeah, I agree with Mikey. There's a point, I don't know if a lot of people, there's a point, I think it was probably that last little bit where he was running back. I think it was Van Dijk, and he looked like he couldn't move. And that's worrying from a point of that. Now, if he started the game, okay, you can kind of, but he for coming on a sub to look that kind of off it is kind of worrying. But I think for in his defence, I think when you have a long injury layoff, what happens is that no matter how many hours you put in the gym, on the training field, you can't replicate match minutes. You can't replicate what the match minutes does to your body. And I think what happens is sometimes you come from a long injury, you come in and play, and if the first 2 or 3 games you survive purely on adrenaline, and then what happens is you hit a brick wall after kind of 2 or 3 games, your body resets and you hit a brick wall, and that adrenaline kind of runs out, and you have to get through that period. And I think the big thing with him and with any striker is rhythm and building a rhythm, and that's what he's lost. And if you look at the time when he's been really important and really vital, he's had that rhythm and he's lost that rhythm. The games that he has played since he's come back, he's snatched at a lot of chances. He's had quite a few chances and he's snatched at them. That's just purely rhythm and rushing, and because he's not quite confident in where he is fitness-wise, that's all it is. That will eventually come back. But sometimes it will just take time. And I think that's where the manager, even though, like I said, the starting 11 come out and it was a big shock and it was like Origi. But I think, to be fair to Origi, I think he's come good and I think he's starting to get a little bit more confidence. I think the manager's starting to trust him a little bit, which is going to help him. And I think at times, Saturday, you look at his ball to Elanga, I think he had really good spells. So I think that he's going to help Taiwo, and that's what it's going to be, a collective unit, what we have to do. And I think what we spoke about a lot, we can't just depend on Taiwo. And I think if where we want to get to, we have to understand that it's going to be a collective unit, especially in that front area. And at times, players are going to have to come in and give each other a rest. But I think with Taiwo, I think at this point in time, he looks off it. But to his defence, that's going to happen because, like I said, the first 2 or 3 games, adrenaline's going to get him through. And then after that, you hit a brick wall, your body shuts down a little bit. And I think all we've got to do now is get through that period, allow him to get back again, and hopefully that rhythm comes. Hopefully he gets a goal, which gives him that confidence, and that snatching at chances that will slowly come back. And fingers crossed he can come good for the real business end of the season.
Yeah, and I think Origi highlights that a bit as well. You talk about rhythm. I mean, he's having a run of games. I didn't see anything in Origi at the start of the season, but perhaps that was a match fitness thing. He's come off a miserable season at Milan, and now he's getting a run. And yeah, he looks a decent player. I wouldn't necessarily sign him for next season yet, but there is something there. And Chris Wood is getting pretty close. I think he might be on the bench at the weekend. We'll see. Obviously, Sangare was back on the bench as well. How are you feeling about the weekend now, Pete? Because Brighton have lost 3-0. I'll check where they are in the Premier League table while you were talking, but they've got Europe this week as well. Pascal Gross was on the bench at the weekend with a knock, who's one of their main players. Estupiñán, who's one of their main players, has absolutely killed my fantasy team, and he's way out of form. So is there anything, a deal of optimism in you going into this one or not?
Oh, there's loads of optimism. I mean, it doesn't take long looking at their recent record to suggest that they're probably not the team that we all think of when we think of Brighton. I think to a degree they've probably gone under the radar a little bit in terms of their form being poor, because there is a sort of mystique about how brilliant their football can be and the sort of the charisma of the manager and all that sort of stuff. But they haven't been playing particularly well from what I've seen. They've obviously had a pretty iffy result at the weekend. I think they go to Roma this week. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're ninth in the table, I should say. Sorry, yeah, and they go to Roma on Thursday and then play us. So that's a massive game for them as well. Yeah.
So I mean, this our game against them is sandwiched between two presumably pretty difficult legs of football against Roma. Yes, I go in like very optimistic. I think there's a blueprint for our side in how we approach away matches, and that we've got lots of players who can thrive on nicking the ball, turning it into transition, and counter-attacking with real threat. You know, that those options are in our team. Whether Taiwo is at his best or not, he's still as a dynamic threat in that position. And if he doesn't play, then Elanga, Origi, and Hudson-Odoi more than offer that with Gibbs White supporting. So I think we can definitely go there and get a result, whether that's a point or 3, who knows. And obviously we might not get anything, but I think we've got the tools to do a job there. And I don't think they need to be a team that we sort of really fear that much at the moment, to be honest. I thought, as I said earlier, I didn't feel desperately concerned at many points in the Liverpool game at all. You know, and this is a Brighton team that I think Everton took a point from. Obviously Fulham have just beaten them 3-0. I think Wolves drew with them. Luton beat them not so long ago, didn't they?
Yeah, Luton won 4-0. I mean, looking at their form, James in the comments says their home form's decent. It is, but they've drawn quite a lot of games. They've drawn with Burnley, drawn with Everton, drawn with Wolves at home since the end of last year. They beat Tottenham 4-2, but generally it's a bit rocky.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a team that we need to desperately fear. Clearly, they've got lots of quality players. They're a good football team. They're in the top half of the Premier League for a reason, and we're obviously not. But I think we're a much better team than our position in the league. I think we showed plenty of promise against Liverpool, lots against West Ham. There's an awful lot to take into this game if we can just try and do that job for 99 minutes this time, if however long is needed. So no, I'm totally optimistic, and we've sort of got to be now, because there is very little time left in this season. We're going to have to start picking up some points, and some of these games that we get points in will have to be ones that we aren't necessarily the bookies' favourites or whatever. And above all else, we've obviously got some huge games coming up against the likes of Luton and teams around us, Palace and such like. And we need to go into them with a sense of momentum, with a confidence about us, and regardless of the result in this one, a performance like we put out at the weekend, I think will give us plenty to take into that run in. So, no, I'm optimistic. I think we can definitely get something there. Fingers crossed.
There is a comment here, and I'll take this at face value because it sounds about right, saying they've lost 1 in 13 at home. So it is one where you don't go expecting a result, but certainly hoping to get one. Just briefly, Mikey, and then I'll come to Lewis. What's your feelings about the game? Because you were on the floor on Saturday.
Yeah, along with pretty much everybody else at the game. I am. I said a few weeks ago that Villa, Liverpool, Brighton, maybe Tottenham, they are games where if we get something out of it, great. But our season will probably be defined against Palace and Fulham and Luton and Burnley and Sheffield United, and those games where we can potentially get all 3 points. That's not to say that I'm happy having lost Villa and having lost Liverpool, but I think Brighton will be tough. One crumb of comfort is what Pete was saying, which I've forgotten about their game against Roma. So that's huge for them as a club and their evolution. So you'd like to think that there might be some tired legs and some squad rotation, and some of their players looking forward to, if they're still in the tie, to turning Roma over and getting through to the next leg. So good time to play them, maybe. I just really want to see Forest turn these pretty decent performances into points, because the games are running out. But no, I'm with Pete. There's nothing to fear. And like I said, if we do go down there and get beat, it's just a level of performance. Because if we play like we did on Saturday and play like we did against West Ham and even Man United to some extent, we'll be okay. So let's just go there positive. We can hurt them. Let's get Tyro in the team if we possibly can. Let's just see what we can do. Because like I said, they may not be at full strength and they will have other things on their mind. So yeah, I probably convinced myself there. We can definitely get something from that game.
Last one for you, Lewis. Something we haven't referenced at all in the podcast today. Brentford v Chelsea, 83rd minute goal for Chelsea. West Ham v Everton, 90 and 95 minute goals for West Ham. Luton, 89th minute goal conceded. We're not the only ones shipping late goals at the bottom of the league, and we're not the only one that can't particularly win games. How do you feel about the bottom of the table now? Because we're amongst a clutch of teams that are showing very similar traits. Have we got enough to climb the table and get where we need to be now from what you're seeing, even with these painful defeats we've seen of late?
Yeah, I think that if you look, looking at the results kind of halfway through the second half on Saturday, it was totally looking the other way, and teams are picking up points. And that's how it's constantly going to change. And like you said, teams are conceding last bit. Everyone's back to you getting at Brighton, regardless of who we're playing now. I know league form, and even we talk about Sheffield United and Luton. Everyone's fighting for their lives. Everyone's fighting for positions. You're in the Premier League. Every game is going to be tough. We've just got to kind of concentrate on keep on performing, keep on building foundations, keep on building from the last performance. And a big thing, if you look at Saturday, if you look at Sunday, for example, a lot of teams really struggle. Especially the Europa League, the Thursday, Sunday has such an effect on players because it's so hard, especially away from home, because they're travelling back kind of early hours Friday morning. They're in the training ground Friday, they're in the training ground Saturday, and it's to go again on Sunday, where the teams that are coming, you're looking, they're kind of having a free week to get prepared. So I think that's what we've got to use. We've got to use little things like this to our advantage, and we've got to try and go on the front foot with the freshness and hopefully catch them short. But I think that every game from now to the end of the season is going to be tough. The games that the teams that are around us, they're going to be even more tough because of the pressure. And that's, I spoke to people before the game on Saturday, and I think that games like Liverpool, stuff like that, they're games to kind of enjoy, the games to kind of see if we can get something. There's no real pressure. The pressure is the ones of Luton, Crystal Palace. But I think they're all going to be tough from now to the end of the season because everyone's fighting for their positions. A lot of clubs are fighting to stay in the Premier League. That's where everyone wants to be. So it's not going to be easy, but I think there's really, really positive signs. I think there's really positive signs in terms of a group, in terms of individuals, in terms of people getting stronger and people getting better. And all we've got to concentrate now is take game by game, concentrate on us. We're still in control. And that's the big thing, is when you're in these situations, are we still in control? We don't need to rely on anybody else. We need to concentrate on ourselves. And as long as we're in that position, we've got to be confident. Like I said, home games, the fans, everything, we've got to come together as a collective unit. And again, like we did last year, and really, really have that run to the end of the season, because I think that there's been a real shift. And I think there's been a real good feeling. I know a lot of people are going to be gutted about how the game ended on Saturday, and that's rightly so. But again, as I said about the start of the show, about the players and the management, but also from the fans this week, dust ourselves down, forget about it. It's happened. Yeah, move on, create that positive environment, and just keep trying to improve. And hopefully, I mean, we sit here and talk at the end of the season, and we've stayed in the league again, and we can build from there.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe naively, I'm optimistic. I think so much of it hinges on Luton away. And if we front up, and I think it is a question of fronting up, seeing that, I think we've got a better team. And if we front up and perform, then I think we can win that game. If we don't, then it looks grim. But I still feel upbeat about the future of the season, especially Brighton. Like, they've done amazingly well. Roma in the Europa League is probably perhaps the biggest game in their history. I don't know Brighton's history intricately, but they're going to have so many eyes on that we played Brighton at the right time last season at home, and that was one of our turning point wins because they just lost an FA Cup semi-final. And I think we could go there and get something to tee us up for Luton. And maybe this all backfires because we were rubbish against Brighton at home and gifted them the points. But I just do feel there's an opportunity there. So let's see if we can take it. Right, I've covered all the ground I wanted to cover today. So any other business? Mikey, any other business from you?
The only thing I was going to say is it gives me great heart to hear Lewis at the start talk about how the players will take it on the chin and reset and get that focus to go again. Because if you look at how that game ended, a lot of fans were on the floor, bereft, gutted. A lot of players slumped to the floor. And I know that's just the emotional minute of actually what happened. But like any true professionals, I heard what I wanted to hear, which was, don't worry, they're going to get in training, they're going to reset, they're going to use it as a springboard and some positivity to say, do you know what, we actually played really well and it just went against us, but if we continue that level of performance, we'll be okay. So let's hope that that's the case, and we go to Brighton on Sunday and get a result, and we have a very different conversation next week. But like you said, Matt, there's a lot of, it's still all to play for, isn't it? It's still all to play for. 11 games left. Plenty of points up, games that, we will be favourites in, games that we won't necessarily be favourites in, but the level of performance is decent. So as long as the guys give everything, I can't complain. And it's just been a pleasure talking to you. I have to say as well, Pete's a great addition to this podcast. Definitely.
Oh, don't blow smoke up his ass.
Sorry.
Just before I come to Pete, I forgot to give a word for our other sponsors for this episode. Brewbacker, I always say, are owned by a Forest season ticket holder in Danny Baker, he was probably on the floor as much as the rest of us at the weekend. So thanks for his backing. I'll put a link for their business in the description for what they do, but they're a noise consultancy around any health and safety issues that your business might have. Right, Lewis, you don't normally have anything, but I'll give you the floor if there's anything you want to add.
No, like normal.
That's fine.
No.
Have you been golfing in Portugal?
I have, yeah, I have. I had a golf tournament out in Portugal.
Golf tournament? Oh my God, you're the
Yeah.
real deal.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about that. The golf, like that. The weather was fantastic, so couldn't complain about that. Yeah, so I've just hopefully now we can start getting back on the golf courses back in the UK, because at the minute it's just a no-go. So yeah, it was a nice little break.
Good. Yeah, well, if it's anything like my garden, it's flooded. So yeah, good luck with that. Pete, anything from you before we depart?
Just quickly to say, I mean, I wanted to issue a bit of a rallying call, but I think Lewis has done that so well through the episode, so I won't say much. But I think it's time now just to purge all of the remaining negativity from the weekend, any of that stuff that is lingering, because as the lads have said, it's it's not a very long spell of games left this run in, and I think we all need to come together now, be as positive as we can, because as far as I see it, there's a lot of stuff to be negative about and things to be worried about, and there are concerns. But I think that the team are answering a lot of the questions that we have, and we know that they've got a huge amount of quality. There are not many teams who are in relegation battles at any point in Premier League season who've got the sort of attacking quality that we can muster. And I believe that the lads can get it right and will pick up the points that they need to overcome deductions and to stay up this season. And let's make sure that we all play a part in that, because we don't want to die wondering whether we could have made our voices heard a little bit more in this run in. So let's all give it some, and I think the boys will stay up. Yeah,
true. You were going to mention the chanting briefly. You don't have to, but you didn't particularly like the chanting.
Yeah, look, I'm sort of reticent to bring this up on a live broadcast, to be honest, because I know that I'll get an awful lot of abuse.
I can get the abuse. I mean, I think we need more songs and probably just move on from it. I don't think personally it's the biggest deal, but the sign on thing we can probably move on from. That's all I was going to say.
Well, no, I mean, look, I think it's the right thing to bring it up. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that Nottingham is one of the most deprived areas in the country, right? It's not cool for us to be chanting about poverty to other teams because it's a football match. That's not banter. That is so weak. Look, we should all be in this together because the country's in an absolute mess. And I'm not going to go political, but times are really
hard. Political.
No, I'm not. But times are really, really hard out there. There's an awful lot of homelessness. There's an awful lot of inequality, and it is difficult. And I just think that we really could be a lot better than chanting about unemployment and food banks and all that sort of stuff. So, I could just do without seeing that at games. But on a more positive note, let's all stick together and get stuck in, because I think we can stay up, and I think we can play a big role in that, like we have done for so much of the time since we got promoted to the Premier League.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not opening up a big debate on that. It's just a side note. Only one from me. June 2 is very good. As I said, I was going to go and see that. Do go see that. Tweet from Laura Mitchell, wife of Greg Mitchell. Only Greg could get on a train to Kettering instead of his actual destination of Manchester. So that sums up Greg Mitchell. Man we love. Absolute car crash sometimes. Right. Thanks very much, everyone who's joined us. Very much appreciate your company for so long after a rough result. We'll be back tomorrow. My son's got tonsillitis, so it might be a bit of a broken up week, but we'll do our best to get lots of stuff out this week anyway. Mikey, thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very cathartic. How far did he go to get? That's literally the other way in the Great.
It is literally the other way. I know. Manchester's north and Kettering south. I don't even know if it's the same train line, is it? Oh dear. He's not on it all this week. He's not on it all.
What a surprise to be like riding around the trains in Britain trying to find his destination. Oh, honestly. But thank
Lewis,
you.
Thank you very much.
No, an absolute pleasure. No worries at all.
You're a good man. Enjoy the golf. Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to say, an absolute pleasure to be on with Lewis for the first time, who not only speaks an awful lot of sense, as the comments have clearly been mentioning throughout, but also is responsible for comfortably my favourite footballing moment of all time. And I think probably the best individual kick of a football that has ever happened with that physics-defying free kick against Ipswich. So an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It wasn't when he fell over after scoring against Preston in the snow.
Oh, come on, Matt. It was a beautiful moment I've just delivered there. You really have to undermine it.
I know. I'm sorry. Lewis knows how much we love him. Don't worry. Right. We'll leave it there. We shall probably be back tomorrow, if not Wednesday. But in the meantime, thanks very much for everyone's company, and we shall see you soon.